Hey folks, I was really hoping to be able to do more riding videos, but as you can see behind me, winter is here and I have my fair share of knee injuries caused by motorcycle riding in the snow, so I decided long time ago not to do it unless I really have to. So today, instead of riding outside, we're gonna take a ride down the memory lane, because recently I thought, like, it's over 20 years since I started riding motorcycles. There were over 10 different motorcycles, I believe 13, that I had in my garage. So let's talk about it, how it all started, what were the bikes, what were the emotions around it, and why I switched the bikes so frequently. Here we go. So the question for today is, am I still searching for the unicorn bike? Have I found one? What were the bikes along the way? And this is a story of some embarrassing situations, also some funny situations, because 20 years, there's quite a lot to talk about. And before I will start, a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, I will be talking about 13 different bikes. So I did the chapters in this video, so if you're not interested in one of them, you can jump straight to another one. Just use the chapters below. Secondly, YouTube is still providing the audio dubbing made by AI for over 20 languages. If you want to, please just give it a try and let me know how does it sound for you in your native language. And thirdly, since I will be mentioning some of the bikes that have related videos on this channel, I will be putting the links in your top right corner for you to explore more if you would be interested. All right, here we go. So it all started in 2003. I was living in a house in the suburbs of Warsaw. I had over 20 kilometers of everyday driving to work, and that driving was mostly sitting in the traffic jams. And I saw people passing me by on scooters and motorcycles, and that was so frustrating to be locked in a car, wasting so much time every day going there and going back home. So at some point I said, okay, the scooter is the solution. I just need a better tool for commuting. And I decided to get a Piaggio Liberty 125 because, a bigger wheels. That scooter already was a bit different from all the other small capacity scooters. And I told about this plan to my mom. And she hated the idea. Like, she said, this is too risky, it's dangerous, all that jazz. But the final argument she used, she said, son, you are a big man. How would you look like on such a tiny scooter like this? Hoping for me to drop the idea at all. But then I gave it a thought. I said, like, my mom is probably right. All I need is a motorcycle license. My mom was obviously devastated that her plan of me dropping the idea did not work. And soon after, I did my course for motorcycle license. I passed the exam and I bought my first ever motorcycle without knowing anything about motorcycles. I bought it for the looks, for the sound, and how much chrome there was all over. So the motorcycle number one was the Honda VT750 Black Widow. Again, I just bought it for the looks. I had absolutely zero experience with motorcycles. I basically only knew where to put fuel and some kind of knowledge that I should loop the chain or something. That was it. So I bought it for commuting and again for the looks. But yes, so I was free from traffic jams and life became beautiful. I was riding to work. Instead of spending hours, I was spending maybe 25 minutes on my way to work and back. I was not speeding, just avoiding the traffic jams. So that was a huge change, and I absolutely loved the fact of being a motorcycle rider. And then something very interesting happened in my life, as I've met with my good friend Arek. A fun fact, we are traveling still together after over 20 years of riding motorcycles, so he will be showing up in this story many more times. And he told me he is also becoming a motorcycle rider. He was just in the middle of his trainings and exams and so on. We decided we should meet one day and have a ride together, and he told me he is considering also traveling on a motorcycle, and that suddenly became a different universe for me, because you know, from just commuting into traveling, that was something new. I don't think I ever considered a motorcycle as a means of transportation for the travel. So when we met, and then we started riding together from time to time, because he was living in another city, we decided to have a few rides together. And this is how Cyklogamonie started about 20 years ago. So when the idea of traveling showed up, I knew that my Honda was probably not the best tool for traveling. First of all, 20 years ago, the roads in Poland were not only bumpy, there were a lot of holes. So because of the riding position, my back was really hurting on almost every hole in the street. So not comfy, not a perfect wind protection, although I was trying with some windshields and so on and so on. So my first dream bike was sold, and I switched to my bike number 2, and that was a shock, because from this, let's say, gentle Honda, not very dynamic, not very fast, I moved to a brand new FZ6 Fazer Yamaha, you know, almost 100 horsepower, the engine from R6, above 7,000 RPM. The devil woke up in the engine, and the red line was at 14,000. Oh my god, that was something. So I really had a completely new experience, but that bike was super universal. So I was able not only to commute even more dynamically on Fazer, but the traveling chapter started. So first we went to Bieszczady Mountains in Poland. Back then that seemed like a proper trip, but a year later I joined a group of friends who invited me to ride to Italy with them, to the Italian Alps, and that bike was perfect for that. So it's such a universal machine. I had it again for 2 years. I did around 17,000 kilometers on that motorcycle, and then during that trip to Italian Alps, another bike caught my eye, and that was my friend's Yamaha FJR 1300. And pretty soon he called me that he is considering selling his FJR, and I got tempted by it, because you know, the Fazer was great, but 1300 engine, 2 exhaust pipes, like the beautiful presence on the street. And 20 years ago it had the windshield was electronically adjustable, so I could raise the windshield from the handlebar. That was something. So the FJR had a massive power, you know, 2 hard cases. It looked like a motorcycle for grown-ups, and it was. It was riding like a tramway on rails. It was like super comfortable experience. And this is the motorcycle that I did my first very long trip on. That we went from Warsaw to Nordkapp. And this is the first ever video that I uploaded to YouTube. It was, yeah, almost 20 years ago. It's not on this channel. It's a basically very crappy slideshow of pictures with the music from Placebo, because we were going back to a festival in Gdańsk back then, or maybe that was already Gdynia. It's called Open Air. It's happening in Poland every year, and Placebo was the headliner of that festival. So I absolutely loved FJR, and then I decided to sell it for something completely different, because the motorcycle number 4, I guess, already was the Yamaha XT660Z Tenere, 48 horsepower. So coming from FJR to 48 horsepower and a single cylinder was an interesting experience, because you know what I did that probably I got inspired by videos of people riding in the dust on YouTube. Yes, I wanted to be that rider that leaves the cloud of dust behind me, and the off-road seed was planted at that point. I was really hoping that that would be the start of the new adventure, and I had zero experience of riding off-road, nada. I was completely shocked when I took it to the sandy trail for the first time, and I dropped the bike like maybe, I don't know, 7 times, because still it was on street tires, and I had no idea how to do it. But that didn't stop me from traveling on the bike. The 48 horsepower, I took it to Romania for our first Romania trip, and that was a blast. I took it then to Hungary, and the Hungary was flooded back then, so it wasn't such a great trip. I had 2 hard cases on that Tenere. Actually, they were plastic, but with some aluminium outside. So it was great bike for traveling, but with companions or other friends on motorcycles of similar power. Because when I took another trip with my friend who was on a bike with, again, about 100 horsepower, then I realized that you know, pushing the Tenere on the highway on constant speed is something that this motorcycle was not designed for. So again, probably after 2 years with the Tenere, I sold it. And you know, since the seed of off-road riding was already planted, I said, yeah, let's find something of the same purpose or the same design, but with a bit stronger engine. And back then in 2011, together with my friend Arek, we bought the last 2 motorcycles that were left in Poland at that time. That was the BMW F800GS. They only had it in the lava orange color, so we took the 2 same looking bikes. Some say that unconsciously I already joined the Team Orange back then, but on some kind of different motorcycle. And this is the bike that I had for the longest. So I had the Beamer for 7 years. During that time I was riding it everywhere. It was the do-it-all motorcycle. I did around 50,000 kilometers on it. Over that time we went to all of the Balkan countries. I've been on it to Albania. We took it to Alps again. We visited Italy and France back then. So that bike was all over the Europe. It was not modified almost at all. I only had a top case and maybe some add-on to the windshield for better wind protection, but besides that the bike was stock. It performed flawlessly. I was only adding fuel, lubing the chain, and I did just a regular service at the BMW. Yeah, only in 2018 I got tempted by the new generation of the same motorcycle. That was the 850 GS. and I sold my old good BMW for that 850, the first with the Chinese engine, but with all of the tech that I really wanted to have. The LED light was something that was tempting, the cruise control, the riding modes, the suspension that was adjustable from the handlebar. It had it all. It was really something. And in 2018 I switched to the 850GS. I did a series of videos for this channel about this motorcycle, and the 850 was absolutely amazing for long trips. So I took it once to Corsica, and on my way back I started in the morning at Lago di Garda in Italy, and I ended up on the Polish seaside in the evening. 1500 kilometers in one day. The weather was great, the roads were empty because that was some kind of a holiday, and I was not really like speeding over the limits. I just engaged the cruise control and I was riding. It was super comfy, like great for this kind of rides, but there was something missing in it, or maybe there was something that I felt about it that I didn't like. To tell you about it, I have to go like 2 steps back, because like in 2017 and 2018 we did our first trips on rented motorcycles. We went to Georgia and then to Georgia and Armenia next year, and in a company based in Tbilisi we rented the F650GS, because those are probably the only ones that they had back then. And I absolutely love that bike off-road. When I think about it now, it's super surprising, but back then I had a blast on the F650GS, riding in the mud of Georgia or on the dusty roads in Armenia. And yeah, I really felt like I was having a great time on 650. So going back to the 850, when I took it off-road here, I felt like this is not the same fun level as I had in Georgia and Armenia. The bike was almost too posh to take it off-road. Like when I dropped it once and I saw the bill for the replacement of the gear lever, or maybe the clutch lever and some other minor things, I said, this probably isn't the bike that I want to have. I want to destroy off-road and then pay those fat bills for the repairs. So I said, maybe that is the moment that I should buy a second bike to my garage. And then I bought my bike number 7, and that was the 2005 F650GS that I just bought to ride off-road without worrying about dropping the bike, to learn to ride off-road. When I think about it now again, learning to ride off-road on 650 is probably a topic for another video. Well, I will not cover that today, but yeah, I have to admit I learned a lot. I started riding regularly on these off-road trails that we have around here in Warsaw, and I had a great time on it. For sure, this Beamer was not light, but it had a decent power. It was extremely simple. I was able to fix it myself in the garage, and I had an absolute pleasure of just opening up the throttle and listening to this engine and the exhaust sound. Absolute fun. And I also found myself riding it much more often that I did on the 850 already. So even when I was going to work, it was a bit more fun to take the 650 to go to work than 850. And that was a surprise for me. So after 1 year, and the more I got experienced in riding off-road, I understood that the weight is a thing, and I should probably get something a bit lighter, or maybe some more off-road oriented, but still in the section of beginners. So I bought my bike number 8, and that was the CRF 250 Rally. It was 2019 model. and that was the COVID era. I bought it in the end of 2019, so in 2020, when there was a lockdown, I've spent a lot of time riding this motorcycle. So the CRF became my do-it-all motorcycle. Remember, I still have the 850 in the garage. So I was not only using the CRF for weekend dual sport rides, I was commuting to work on it because, again, it was more fun. I even shipped it to Kyrgyzstan for a 2 weeks long trip, and the bike performed flawlessly, with one exception. The fuel there is really low octane, and with the high altitudes it suddenly became a problem. It was losing power, but besides that, I absolutely had a blast on it. I have modified the suspension because the stock suspension is gummy, and that was my favorite bike for a long time. So I had it a long time, 2 years, and then I understood, like, I probably felt that I outgrew the motorcycle. I was, doing everything that came to my mind on it. If there was a mud, I was going through mud. It could be deep as hell, but this is what the bike was for. There was a road that I didn't know how it ends. I took it. So that was a really fun bike. And yeah, but at some point I felt like 24 horsepower. Okay, let's try to find something more powerful. Still, I had the in the garage the 850, but at that point I probably understood, like, I am barely riding this bike. I still have to pay for the expensive insurance. I am still obligated to do the annual BMW required services for the bike that I barely used. So I sold the BMW. I also sold the CRF at one point, and I moved to 2021 Husky 701 Enduro with a clear idea. I had those two motorcycles for some time now, and it was frustrating for me to have a bike in the garage that I don't like to ride. Okay, and I said the next one should be the unicorn, the universal one that will be good for my commuting, for dual sporting, for traveling, for everything. And the 701 was exactly that. It was heavily modified to my needs. I had the rally tower, I had a different suspension, I had everything on it that I needed to make it a light adventure motorcycle. And I took it to Romania again. We did the ACT Romania track. I had a blast riding this motorcycle around Poland. It was absolutely great. Until life has changed. Because the one thing that the 701 was not great at was the long stretches of highways, especially when you are traveling with friends on big BMWs, when their favorite speed on the highway is 130. The engine of 701 was definitely not designed for this kind of 8 hours on the highway riding 130. So that was the only thing that was not great about it. But I thought, hey, this is something that I do maybe 2 times a year, maybe 4 times a year. So I said, okay, I can live with it. All of the other days during the year but the bike was perfect, except for those long stretches of highway that happened really rarely. So I said, okay, that's fine, I will survive. But then something has changed. We have found a weekend getaway apartment that is 360 kilometers away from home, and I understood that the highway reality will not be maybe 2 or 4 times a year, but I would probably be riding motorcycle on highway much more often. So that was the reason number one. And reason number two was that my kids started to join me on the passenger seat sometimes, and the braking power of 701 with the pillion is not something that I felt comfortable with. So my unicorn bike suddenly was not such a unicorn anymore. So in 2023 I sold it and I bought the KTM 890 Adventure R, hoping this to be the next level unicorn, because it's still capable off-road, is great on highways, super comfy. You can ride it with a passenger on behind you. Great brakes, great engine, a lot of tech, everything that I ever wanted. I loved it. And then I took it off-road and I quickly started missing a much lighter machine like my CRF or even Husky, because with my skill level and the fact that I do ride alone, when I saw a long stretch of the mud and I turned around on the 890, I thought like, okay, I think it's time to say sorry and agree with the fact of having two bikes again. And I started to fill that gap with CRF 250L. I found it used, almost new, like 1,000 kilometers on the odometer, but that was a mistake. Since I already outgrew the CRF 250 Riley, the CRF 250L was not fun off-road. I was like, on day one I was opening up the throttle fully and I understood like, I'm a big guy, the CRF 250 is not something that provides the fun level that I am expecting. So from that, still owning the 890, I decided to go on the other side of the scale and I bought the Husky FE501, an enduro machine. But I quickly understood that was on the other side of the spectrum, and that was too much for my needs. And I am covering all of the reasons in a video, so you can watch it here. And finally, bike number 13 is the one that you recently saw on the channel. It is 2026 model of 690 Enduro R, and I am convinced that bike will stay with me for much longer, okay? Because I've been to that platform, I understand what it is capable of. It addresses all of my needs perfectly, and yeah, I'm gonna keep it. I have this bet with my friends. They don't believe me. They say you are switching the bikes so often, you're gonna switch this one too, but I feel it otherwise. So now I have the 890 and 690 in the garage. Some say that they overlap a lot, and I agree, but I also have a list of arguments why having those two bikes makes sense for me, and I will cover that in the next video. There are two more motorcycles that are important part of my bike history, and these are the rented ones. Number one being another GS, and that is a Suzuki GS 150. You can rent one in Pakistan, we did it in Skardu for a 2 weeks long trip, and that was probably one of the most joyful, surprising, brave little motorcycle. Another one being Royal 350 Classic, we rented in Nepal, and that was a bike that I was not enjoying that much off-road, because again my back was hurting even more than it did on my Honda. Yeah, it was great on the streets of Kathmandu, but off-road, oh, no bueno. Before I will wrap up, let me tell you about the bikes that I have considered along the way but never bought. So going far back in the history, the Suzuki DL650 V-Strom was on my mind for a long time, but then I took a test drive and I felt it was not delivering the emotion I was looking for. The same story happened with Honda CBF 600. Oh, that was a boring bike. And then I finally bought the Fazer. In most recent history, I was heavily considering Honda Africa Twin. Again, I took it for a test drive. Oh my god, how heavy it was. Maybe because of the DCT version that I got for the test ride, it felt like riding an elephant. So that was a no-go for me. I was also kind of disappointed with how the DCT worked. I really hoped it would be like smooth ride. It wasn't. Maybe that was the test motorcycle that was not treated very gently in the past, but I never decided to go for Honda Africa Twin. Yeah, Yamaha Tenere 700, obviously. Some say this is a unicorn bike, and I had it for test rides twice. Once I even took it for 2 days, and the embarrassing story is that I dropped it just under the dealer's door, because I came on my CRF to the dealers, light bike, and I took the T7, and I just wanted to see something while sitting on the bike. I wanted to see something, and I leaned the bike a bit, and I was not able to hold it anymore. That was an embarrassing moment. And then I took it for 2 days. I spent 2 days riding on it. I absolutely loved the engine, but the top heaviness was something that told me not to get it. I also have friends who have the T7. They've been joining our rides for some time. I saw the issues with how the exhaust hanger is scratching against the swing arm. That's an issue. I also saw how annoyed he was because he needed to switch off ABS every time he started the bike. This is something that Yamahas still do, I think. There was no tech on that bike, so I already knew how comfy riding with cruise control is. I think Yamaha has just introduced this in one of the 2026 models. So yeah, the T7 is becoming much better and better year by year, but back then it wasn't the right bike for me. Why not the AJP PR7 then? Because that question often comes up in your comments. In Poland, basically no dealers, no availability. I see people are sometimes trying to buy it directly from the factory in Portugal, but then I see how often they are searching for parts, and they are trying to build some groups to have a group order for parts. I don't get it. And the community of AJP PR7 owners in Poland on Facebook is less than 80 people now, and I am sure not of them have the bike. Because some of them, they sold it already. So I take my bikes for longer trips. Having a good network of other riders using the same platform, some service availability in some countries, parts availability, I know for KTM is now a different story, but no, I like the concept of AJP, but I don't think this is the right bike for me. And there are some brands that I never considered buying. The first one being always Harley Davidson. Nope, nothing for me in that range. I never had a Kawasaki, I never had a Suzuki, although I was interested and tempted by the new DR4S, but the price is crazy. I never got a Triumph. And finally, Ducatis. I took a ride once from Warsaw to Kraków on a beautiful Ducati Monster, and no, that was not a comfortable bike. I know Multistrada probably is. it is a beautiful bike. I see a lot of YouTube videos, people traveling around the world on multistradas. Okay, I think it's still very expensive, still a bit exotic for me. Okay, so I guess this is it. So it's a history of 20 years and 13 bikes. The question might be, is the search for the unicorn over? I think I am quite close. As I told you, I am quite sure the 690 will stay for years in my garage. 890 is a perfect bike, and if, only if, I would ever decide to make any changes, that would probably be related to the bigger bike in the garage. But for now, no. And in the next video I will talk about why I think those two bikes are perfect for me at this moment and why I will keep them. So please stay tuned. If you have questions or similar stories, please let me know down in the comments. And thank you for watching today. Ride safe. See you next time.